The stove is on. It's okay? Not
You're
bad?
good.
All right. Well, I'll be quick, although there's tons of updates. I would say most of them are good. I'm going to be putting certain things in the chat. A lot of this are kudos to Sharon Demarker. We should have Sharon come on soon. Sharon is our new WCIM physician, family medicine doctor, Andrew Weil trained, and she was the head of the unsolved mystery cases at the DC Veterans Hospital, one of 3 in that country. So she's moved to us. So she's providing some of this information. So first, I'm putting this in the chat. Is the relatively good news is that Pfizer preliminary data shows that the 3 doses, so 2 first one and the booster, seem to be neutralizing Omicron relatively well, and the 2 doses, so just the standard without booster, seem to indeed offer a pretty significant protection still from a severe illness, to a lesser degree, of course, than to the Delta, but still. The next, and by the way, yeah, put the questions as it comes. I think it'll be mixed with my links. That's okay. Next is there is a concern for the stealth variant, meaning the way the strains get picked up, it's a special PCR test that's not used clinically, used just for the research purposes. And apparently this new Omicron subvariant escapes that test. So we may be seeing an under-reporting of the actual frequency of Omicron. I'm sure that they will quickly create a test, but it'll probably take a few weeks before we'll have more updates and more specific, more accurate data. Something that's even better, we kind of already talked about this before in terms of the fact that mix and match seems to work. Interestingly, some of the newer data from England, from UK, points that not only it's good, it actually may be better, slightly better than doing the same vaccine. So this whole idea that a long time ago I said maybe mix and match would be better, which, you know, looks like maybe indeed it's been coming true, but the reality is I guess it really doesn't matter. The difference is small, it's slightly better. I say you probably should be getting whatever the booster that's available, that's easier to get, but we can talk more about that specifically because that could also be very individualized. And then there was one other thing. I'm waiting for a more specific link to a newly approved antibodies that can be used as prophylaxis after exposure. So FDA just recently approved this. I was looking for the link and I couldn't find it. If anybody have a second and you guys want to look for the link. The importance is that for people who are not vaccinated, it becomes a potential, and actually even for those who are vaccinated, it could be something that can be very useful if the risk for a particular individual is very high. Now, FDA approval doesn't mean things are going to be available right away. It's also not very clear how it will be distributed. It is an infusion at home, so it'll have to be set up and administered by a healthcare practitioner. So I would say stay tuned. We're probably going to know a lot more about this in upcoming weeks. And then the last update on Omicron, WHO sending warnings saying that even though we're still not seeing an increase in mortality, but they're basically saying nobody can say it's a milder variant because they're concerned that as the Omicron progresses, it actually can mutate further and become more concerning in terms of morbidity and mortality. But the best data we have, let me see, I think I have that link, 1 second. The best data we have appears to be from the South Africa itself. It looks like that small study that they did of about 40 patients, don't quote me exactly, I think there may have been 38, most of the patients who were in a hospital out of those 40 who were tested and found to have COVID were actually admitted for other reasons. They were not admitted for COVID. So these were incidental findings in otherwise asymptomatic patients. Very few patients had any pulmonary involvement whatsoever. So indeed, so far for now, it looks like that the situation continues to be pretty safe in terms of just severity of it. But again, we won't know more details until we have specifics, because it takes a little bit while to get more data. So I'm posting, I don't know if everybody will have an access to this. This is the MedPage data, putting the study on that was just published. Yes, it's 38 adults in COVID wards that were on December 2nd, and they were unvaccinated. So 8 had unknown status, 6 were vaccinated. And all 9 patients who developed COVID pneumonia were unvaccinated. So nobody who were vaccinated developed any pulmonary involvement. So, and again, as I said, a lot of patients were just incidental findings, but they were found on a test, not because they had symptoms. That's all I have. I know there were a couple of questions, Janet. There is one question: why can't there be vaccines that act longer and be more specific to Omicron? Pfizer came out this week with a statement that we'll have Omicron and Delta specific boosters by March. Why can't they work longer? Well, it's $1 million question. Solve that one, and I can guarantee you'll be in the news. It's just how immunity works. You know, you can try to trigger immunity with hopes that the memory will stay up, but it doesn't always stay. And I'm not sure, this is way over my pay grade in terms of complexity of the immunology here, but why certain viruses we can develop lifelong immunity, to some we cannot. It depends on the type of a virus, depends on the type of antibody that's formed, the types of vaccine. So I don't have a better answer. And I think, Janet, I think that was Benita's question, I remember. There was another question, right?
Well, do me a favor, answer Salome's question, and I'll go back and look at the other questions that I sent you.
Salome's question.
Mm-hmm. It's in the chat box.
Great. Should those of us who took Moderna get Pfizer? No.
For me, it will make it number 4 if I do.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So no, there's no data that the 4th shot is needed. So, because if you got 3 Modernas, then that's fine. But if you got 2 Modernas and you want to get a Pfizer, then the question is this better than getting a 3rd Moderna? So I think if there is a difference, it's minute, and it's probably not really all that worth it. I do see that there's more side effects with Moderna, but the difference is very small, and it probably has to do, again, with the fact that it's slightly higher potency of Moderna vaccine. My parents got boosters, what's today, Friday? On Wednesday. Mom had nothing, like no symptoms at all, and then Dad had a fever one night. Woke up next day, and I told him, he was like, no, I need to go for half marathon today. He's like, dude, you just had a 38, 101.5 fever. You're not doing half marathon today. So he's like, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. So he's doing it today.
Yeah. All right, Misha, I think that's a good place to stop with the questions. We'll come back at the end and have Misha answer questions, even though we don't want to continue to do that, but we may have to. Misha, if you'd like to introduce someone you know.
Absolutely. So I'm super excited because we had Sylvia on, well, I think at least 6 months ago. Was it close to a year already? I don't know. I'm just like, I constantly feel like I'm zoning out time-wise what happened when. But anyway, I personally love to hear where your practice is, how you're growing. Tell us a little bit about the shifts. Sylvia was one of our stellar residents, and the medical students, or just a resident? Yeah, you were like forever here. And Now she's in the practice. She started a very successful weight loss program and metabolic optimization program. And I hope she'll tell us more about it, but we also have a little bit of a wellness talk that she's going to give us as well. So with that, Sylvia, it's so great to have you back.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure to be here. We were chit-chatting when we started, and I said, I feel like this is my tribe because this is where I end up. You know, people hear doctor, they hear MD, and they automatically put you in a box. They think medicines, this is what you do, and you follow all these trials and things. But, you know, the longer I practice, and it's been a long time, I actually, you know, well, Misha was my my attending. He was our senior doctor, but now I have gray hair. So I've been in the game a long time too, so 10 years. And the longer I practice, the more it makes me realize that while our randomized controlled trials, our systematic reviews, all of those things are great to give us a starting point of understanding a person. It's just a starting point, and every individual is different. And so really through my own personal experience of having to lose 60 pounds, not once, but twice, that was triggered by the hormonal shifts of pregnancy and stress eating, I really learned that it's those little things that we overlook that really tend to throw our health and our wellness off, our weight and our wellness off. And weight is just often just the physical manifestation of what's going on with us mentally, spiritually, and physically as well. And so that is what I love doing in Embrace You. And I think since I was last here, I've released a book. So I have a best-selling book, Embrace You, Your Guide to Transforming Weight Loss Misconceptions into Lifelong Wellness. And yes, I do have a 12-week coaching program to help people break through those barriers and that keeps you stuck in cycling and weight. But really why I was asked to come here today is to talk about a topic that honestly, y'all, if I be very honest, had me so nervous and so shivering because I was like, this is so vulnerable. Actually, they asked me to talk about this the first time. And I said, you know, I hid and I said, I'm going to actually I'll talk about workplace wellness and occupational wellness instead of talking about spiritual wellness. But Leah asked me a long time ago to talk about spiritual wellness because when we first met and connected, one of the things that she really liked is that for me personally and professionally, I like to incorporate spirituality into the work that I do, both as a physician, as a coach, and just as a human being. And so with that being said, I'm going to talk to you today about spiritual wellness. And specifically, I think this is a great time to talk about it because if you just do a survey of like the news and some of the things that have come out, whether you're looking in the popular press or you're looking in medical literature, I've been seeing a lot of articles about the importance of spirituality and how it really impacts your health and your well-being. And so a couple of things that I saw that were interesting, and I'll include them as resources at the end, was this book called The Awakened Brain, The New Science of Spirituality and the Quest for an Inspired Life. And this comes from a Columbia University researcher with over 20 years of looking at functional MRI studies to see the impact of spirituality on decreasing rates of addiction, decreasing rates of depression. And so she put together this book to help people figure out your spirituality and what that means. And that's what we'll be talking a bit about today. Then also another great resource that I found, if you're a nerd like me, I like to call myself a cool nerd, even though I don't have Stay Well Man's hat. I wish I had brought my hat. I have so many cute Santa hats. But so if you're a nerd like me, there was a great paper that just came out last month that talked about defining spirituality in healthcare and a systematic review and conceptual framework. So really showing how can we incorporate spirituality in a meaningful way in healthcare, because as I'll show you in a few minutes, it really does help with outcomes in your overall health and well-being. Then my roommate from college, so I'll give that plug, but I wrote this book called The Self-Care Prescription. And I do like it because she has a whole chapter on spiritual self-care and walks you through like questions that you can ask and how to develop your spiritual self-care. So all this this to say that there's like a foundation. There's, you know, even though I feel like when you're in the integrative space or you're a whole person or holistic type of practitioner, you feel like, duh, we always do this. But I'm happy to see that it's coming to surface in the popular press and in the academic spaces as well. And why this matters for your health is because it can really, spirituality has been shown to really be able to make a meaningful impact in people's lives. So for instance, the American Cancer Society found that cancer survivors found that spirituality was an independent predictor of a better quality of life and emotional well-being. And then also that in palliative care patients, that people who had unmet spiritual needs had a lower quality of life. And as I mentioned, that people who had a strong spiritual life were less likely to have addiction and less likely to have recurrent depression. So the nerd in me, the doctor in me who wants to put up that white coat shield, wants to just stay here in the realm of facts and, you know, and never go there. But I promise today I'm going to be hot, humble, open, and transparent, right? Because honestly, I feel like there's just we are in a time when we've lived through almost, oh my goodness, how long has it been? Seems like forever, but 2 years of living through a global pandemic, right? And so we are at we have high levels of anxiety, clinical anxiety, depression, and really this is a time where our spirituality can help us. It can help bridge the gaps with some of these unknowns. Like I know personally for me, one of the blog posts I shared was like getting over my COVID vaccine fear. I had a legitimate fear of getting the COVID-19 vaccine. I say it, I don't care if you judge me, but I just like to put it out there because sharing my story has helped so many people. And even though I was a COVID-19 frontline worker and I saw firsthand people dying from COVID, and that was very scary, when it came time to get the vaccine, all the unknowns were really, really freaking me out. And one of the things that helped me get over that fear, that anxiety, was my spirituality, was being able to, and my background is I'm a practicing Christian, and so was being able to lean into those key verses. You know, God has not given us the spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind. And that helped me. And part of that was combining that, my spirituality, with the science that was out there. Okay, when I'm operating from a spirit of fear, which we know, those of us who are in medicine and things, it's the amygdala, and that lower brain is sending out all those impulses. I can't use my executive brain function and really think about, okay, why, like logically, do these studies make sense? Is it there? So I think it's so important to have your understanding of spirituality. And today, where I really wanted us to start, if I'm making this personal and more about you and less about one particular journey or one particular thing, is I think one of the main reasons a lot of times when people even hear spirituality, they get turned off, is because of religion. You know, and so I think the first question that I wanted to throw out to you and have that discussion and go there is, when you think of, what's the difference between spirituality and religion? So feel free to type in the chat. Let's see if I can see what people are saying. Ooh, no takers. So one word, if you think about spirituality and religion, the difference between the two. And it doesn't have to be academic, scientific. If you just think of one word. Thank you, Camilla. I see someone typing. Okay, one is, okay, arguably institutionalized. Religious is a knowing about God. Spiritual is knowing God. I love that. Yes, yes, yes. Personal connection instead of groupthink. Yes, exactly. Yes, hot versus cold. I like it. Spicy. All right. So great. Yeah. And you know, there's so many different definitions. I'm going to propose one to you. Yes. So I see so many things. Thank you so much in the chat, institution versus dogma. When I think about the difference between, you know, spirituality and religion, for me personally, and where did everyone's faces go? What comes to mind is really water. And I know that may sound strange, but spirituality to me is, if you think about like water, is our water, how water flows freely and it's not contained. That is our spirituality. We each have an essence of it, regardless of what you believe in. And it's free flowing. It can go anywhere it wants to go. Whereas religion may be the container or the glass that we pour our spirituality into, or vice versa. For me personally, how I came to my spirituality was through, religion. And I, like at the age of 8, started going to church. Interestingly, I went to church without my parents because my parents were restaurateurs and owned a nightclub, and they would be sleepy on Sunday morning. But my grandma, who had obesity and couldn't go to church, would be the one who would wake us up and motivate us to go. And then part of my duties was that I needed to come back and like tell her the notes. So that taught me to pay attention very early in church. And so it really wasn't, I don't think, until like college that I developed my own relationship with God, because there was no one to make me go to church or tell me what to do. It was a choice at that point. And that is when I really started going on this quest of and learned the difference between spirituality and religion. But it really, to me, I think about water. But of course, the nerd in me is going to share the actual definitions with you. Okay, so one of the key things, and a lot of you hit the nail on the head as I wait for this to pull up, is just that spirituality, is based on connection. It's based on your feelings, your relationship, and more relational, versus religion is more institutionalized and based on theology, based on doctrine, and has more of a system based in it. So that is that. And I'm not sure why this isn't coming up. Let me just stop the share. All right, so that's the difference that has been proposed in the literature about the two, the difference between the two of them. Okay, I'm not sure why this isn't coming, but maybe it's for us to just go ahead and stop share. So the next question that I was going to throw out to you is, with that, is how do you express your spirituality, which I see some people have already started talking about it. And the difference, again, with those two, oh, here we go. Okay. Sorry about that. Let's see, if I were in church mode, I would say, "Get thee behind me, Satan." But so spirituality is, let me see if it's going to present. If it doesn't, we'll just do this without it. I'm not going to stress out about this today. So spirituality is vast and can be connected to God, nature, and others or surroundings. Spirituality is associated with quality and meaning in life, versus religion, like we said, traditional values, practices, certain groups of people, and faith. Religion is guided by tradition, rules, and culture. And then cultivating your spiritual wellness. This is where I really wanted to focus, because this is what's so important. I think a lot of times when we get caught up in, yes, thank you, Elizabeth, when we get caught up in religion, we can lose sight of that deeper spiritual connection within ourselves or within God and our higher power. And so it's so important to make sure that you're not getting so focused on the task and the dogma, as I like that word, of religion, that you're losing sight of the connection, which is what it ultimately is about. So it's one of the things that's been proposed for cultivating spiritual wellness, again, in the article I mentioned before, using a framework for it, is looking at individually, what are your beliefs? And beliefs don't always have to be like divine, you know, like I believe in humanity, I believe in the goodness of people, I believe in outside of that. So what are your beliefs? What are your practices, that those things that make you feel more spiritually connected? And I know Mara's going to talk about that today and lead us through an exercise. So that could be prayer, meditation, could be going to church, the community of that, having small groups, those types of things, doing community service, volunteer work. What are the experiences you had? And I think honestly, this is the hard part for a lot of people that can make that, you know, really figuring out your spiritual experience hard, because a lot of us may have had some negative experiences. You know, like I like to say, if not for God, if not for Jesus, I wouldn't go to church. Like church people can be awful. And I have experienced that personally. But it is because, you know, of that connection and how I experienced God that I continue to go. And also it gives me an opportunity to be the exception to the rule. I hope. I try my best, you know, but being aware of those experiences so that they don't influence your own relationship on your own spiritual walk is so important. And then in this paper, which again, I'll share the resource for as well, they break it down even further into what your other beliefs or your core tenements are. So the divine, community, self, nature, that's a big one for me, sacred, and either being defined as sacred by yourself or as a group of people or by your culture, spiritual beings, so other things, deities outside of God, or even the belief in oneself as being a spiritual being, life after death, and then also art as well. And then asking yourself, what are the things that give you meaning, purpose, values, well-being, inner peace, and your personal growth and support. So these are some things to think about, but I'm going to break it down a little bit more more simply than that, because I think that's something that can take longer. So I do want you to kind of take a pen and paper out. One of my favorite spiritual practices is journaling. So we're going to do a little bit of that. And I have so many journals actually on my desk. It's ridiculous. Everyone knows to give me a journal, but I have lots of journals and here. But it's, for me, writing and the act of writing has been really, it helps me to connect spiritually. It also helps me in my reflection. When I go back, I've been able to discover so many things about myself as well. So some things, you know, to ask on as you're cultivating your own journey is like, getting more clarity around, is it religion or spirituality that you're looking for or that you're practicing? So what are for religion, what are the practices, rites, rituals I should follow or that I do follow? I don't like the S word, should, but I do follow. What are those that you follow? What do you define right as wrong? What's guiding that for you? What's true? What's false? You know, these are some things that may be found in religion. Now, in spirituality, where do you find meaning? Where do you feel connected? What do you value in terms of your life and your practice? So these are just a few things. And this comes from the University of Minnesota Center for Spirituality and Healing. And then in between, and there's intersection, of course, with both of these, right? So belief, comfort, reflection, ethics, and then the awe that comes with it. Now, I asked you earlier, which I saw some people had already shared in the chat, like what are some ways that you express your spirituality? And I think this is so important because I saw Elizabeth wrote faith, prayer, action to others, self-care, basically harmonious relationships with God, self, others, and nature. I love that. And that resonates so much with me too. And then spirituality can be defined that which gives our lives deeper meaning. Yes, exactly. So, you know, there's so many things. And I think in a time like this where it's easy to get weighed down with what's going on in the world. And it's easy to get weighed down by the past, by the present, so many things. It's so helpful to have those spiritual outlets. One thing for me, as I mentioned, in addition to, yes, the religious practices that I might do, is making time for music. It's a big part of my life. My dad passed in 2020. early 2020, but he was a DJ. So music is one of the ways I feel like I can connect with him and connect, with God, connect with that inner sense of self. And it brings me a lot of peace, prayer, meditation, mindfulness, being out in nature. I don't go more than 2 days without getting outside, even if it means I have to bundle up like yesterday. So, I think it's just so important. And even now, 7 years into my wellness journey, movement. So being able to move my body in terms of, people say exercise, but really for me, it's just movement. So making sure that I regularly move my body and express gratitude in that movement is a big thing for me. Just the joy of being able to move. And honestly, in speaking about gratitude, one of the practices that I created during the pandemic and working on the pandemic was something I call radical gratitude. And how it came to me is actually a somewhat funny story, but I had just literally come back from working on the COVID wards. And, it was a long day. I was tired. And my then 1.5-year-old, she's so rude. She had no care that I had been working. Her mom was doing all of this. So she was literally throwing a tantrum and screaming at the top of her lungs, just screaming, hurry up and pick me up. Why haven't you been here? And the thought that came to my mind was thank God that she can breathe on her own. Wow, look at how she's respirating as she yells. She's ventilating properly. And that thought, and I was and I burst out laughing. And then she and her 1-year-old mind looked so confused, why are you laughing, crazy lady? But it really, in that moment, I was there's truly something you can be grateful for in every moment of life. And I think that's one of the practices that has come out of this for me. And whether you do that religiously, honestly, y'all, if I be very honest, because I promise to be hot, humble, honest, and transparent, sometimes doing stuff religiously kind of turns me off. If I say, okay, I'm going to wake up at 3 a.m. every day and write in my gratitude journal, that makes me a little nervous and I fall off on it. But if I say that I'm going to find a way to show gratitude in each day and look for something, radically look for something to find gratitude in, then I'm able to do it without putting so much structure and tenements around me. And that could be because, in my life and my personality, I'm already prone to just having a lot of structure. I like strategies, I like structure. And sometimes that's important to know that about yourself as you are trying to cultivate your spiritual wellness also as well. So I'm just going to leave you with 4 questions, and we'll take about, I think I have 1 minute, right, that we could do, that you can write in your journal. Oh, thank you, Cheryl. She says, sorry for your loss, Dr. Bollie. Thank you. Yes, and the little things keep us. So 4 questions I want to ask you, and I'm using Canva, so it's just doing its own thing today, but that is fine. So 4 questions to ask you is, are you, as you consider your own walk in cultivating your own spirituality, are you religious, spiritual, both, or neither? I argue everyone is. Okay, so can you see my screen actually? Am I sharing my screen? No, I'm I don't think I'm sharing. Okay, there we go. So are you religious, spiritual, both, or neither? And I would argue through the work that I've done with people, and I work with people from all walks of faith, right? All faiths, even people who think that they're atheists, but even in the work that I do, through my years of now at this point, seeing literally 10,000 patients, even if you're atheist, you have a spiritual part of you that you connect with. And so finding what centers you, what grounds you, what gives your life meaning is so important. Sometimes that is the wellness work that I do with people. They might realize that, actually, even though I may not ascribe to a set religion or believe in God or a higher power, but where I find purpose, where I found value and meaning is when I am out in nature, when I am treating animals well, when I am volunteering. So finding that thing is so important. So ask yourself that question. If that is too heavy, those words are too heavy, start by just seeing what brings you joy. What is that thing that sparks joy in you, even on your darkest day, even if everything feels like it's going wrong? What brings you joy? And then what makes you feel purpose-filled? And then what activities do fulfill you? And then are those the activities that actually fulfill you spiritually? And how can you cultivate them, more of that in your life? So those are the 4 questions I leave you with. And then I do think my time may be running out. So I just want to remind you that your spiritual wellness is a lifelong journey and not a destination. And to just truly embrace your uniqueness, and the way what it looks like for you may look different. So in whatever you do, always embrace you. And so with that said, I'm done. So any questions, comments, or concerns? But I feel so relieved, because let me tell y'all, this is probably the scariest presentation I've ever done in my life.
No, you don't look scared at all. So
we couldn't tell that.
I'm sweating bullets. I literally am. Kid you not.
Well, practice does it. What's the word? Practice makes it right.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, okay, Stephanie has a question. Yes, please.
Hi, not a question, just a statement. You did a wonderful job. Thank you so much. And I'm a therapist, and right now there is a tsunami taking place in the mental health field. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, coming off of 2020, and folks are just waking up to the shock of how much loss has actually occurred. And in my work, I'm finding right now, I pull from, a variety of modalities, but right now I'm pulling from existential psychology quite a bit, as folks are trying to create meaning and purpose and understanding around grief and loss. Not just the loss of folks that they knew, but the loss of the opportunity to be there because they were saying goodbye over a tablet, because they couldn't get into, I could go on. But so I think the topic is so important right now, because people are going to have to, right now, the tsunami is here, and people are having to make sense of how much loss actually occurred in 2020. So I want to thank you. It's on point. And can you please put your contact information, email, phone number, whatever you feel comfortable with, in the chat? Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you for the work that you do. It's so needed, so necessary. And I hope that it was in the list. This is by no means a comprehensive list. And that's why I will share, Jeanette, with you all the resources I listed there, because I cannot emphasize the importance of the intersection of mental health with spirituality. And it's so important. I see a therapist every Wednesday, and I have since my dad passed, and since I learned he was sick, because it's just so important to make sure that you're taking care of the mind, body, and spirit. And a lot of times too, what I sometimes see, again, having grown up in the church, and in the Black church in particular, is that there's a reluctance to get help. Mental health is like, oh, I'll just pray about it, or I'll just talk about it. You'll keep it inside and you'll just talk to Jesus about it. But there is benefit in community and in counseling. And so I'm grateful that you're here and that you're sharing and what the work that you do, because you're right there. Yeah. Like, it's been a tough 2 years. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And of course, welcome, Mara. Everybody knows you by now. You've been to, I don't know, countless times. I stopped counting.
You stopped counting.
We spent, well, actually Sylvia's talk just automatically brings it to the practice. But I actually think, Janet, we're not gonna have any questions after.
Okay, no.
Yeah, I think Ms. Goldberg's, Kathy's question, I'll take it next time. I'm sorry, Kathy. So with that, Mara.
Thank you, Dr. Kogan, Dr. Sylvia. It is always a pleasure to work with you. Mind, body, and spirit. It's such a critical aspect of where we are now. And so I want to take you on a bit of a journey to do just that. The knowledge that we have is within us. And so taking some time to connect the dots for us as to what our body, which is a team player with us, is saying, what our emotions and mental thoughts are bringing into the awareness of what's taking place, and then also the spiritual. So I always love working with Dr. Sylvia because the spiritual is such an important aspect of what I do too. If people are not in alignment, that's when we feel off balanced. So we have to be listening to all aspects of ourselves to be able to understand that. So I'd like to give you a meditation that does just that, hopefully. And so this meditation is to help you start to listen to those mind, body, and spirit aspects. So if you want to go ahead, feel free to go off video. You might want to have a piece of paper or a pen next to you just to be able to jot down any insights that you have. You want to make sure that you're very comfortable. And we begin by bringing our awareness to our breath. So go ahead and take those deep, if you're able, breaths in. As you exhale, almost as if you're doing a slow release, letting go, letting go. And as you do this, I want you first to bring your awareness down to the root chakra. This is the place where the spine connects to maybe the chair that you're sitting on. We want to take a moment to let our body know that we're listening to it. And as we breathe in, we breathe into that root chakra. That's the place of our legs, our feet, and again, where the spine touches the chair that we're sitting in. Take a moment just to notice how you're feeling. How do you feel in your legs and your feet? Do you notice any tension? Maybe even some pain? Notice too if there's any images that come to your mind or a color, anything else that's trying to get your attention. This chakra is about our survival, our stability, and about our tribal understandings or expectations. So as you continue to bring your awareness to your root chakra, consider the following questions. Do you tend to have tension or pain in your feet or legs? Do you often feel fatigued? Are you overly fearful of change? Would others describe you as ungrounded or spacey? And do you have a tendency to hoard material things? When the chakra is balanced, we feel grounded, a sense of trust in the world, good health, feeling safe and secure and stable. When there's deficiencies, we feel a disconnection from our body. We may feel fearful and anxious, have poor focus or discipline, or boundaries. And it's important to notice that the universal truth, the spiritual truth of our root chakra is all is one. All is one. We can sense or notice how from this energetic center, we are connected to everything else on this planet. Other people, plants, animals. It's all connected, and we are all connected. So go ahead and take a deep cleansing breath in. Release and let go, and bring your awareness up to your sacral chakra. This is the area of our sexual genital area, around the lower back. Connect in here. How are you feeling? Is there any tension, any pain? Do you notice a color, an image that comes to mind? This chakra is about our pleasure, our passions, our emotions. So as you check in with this chakra, here are some questions to consider. Do you have any problems with your reproductive organs? Do you feel like your creativity is blocked? Do you wish your sex life was different? Do you enjoy life's pleasures? When this chakra is balanced, we have graceful movements. We have emotional intelligence, ability to experience pleasure, and have healthy boundaries. When there's a deficiency, we have a rigidity around the body, a fear of sex, poor social skills, denial of pleasure, and a lack of desire or passion. And the universal truth here is honor one another. Honor one another. So go ahead and take a deep cleansing breath in. Slowly exhaling, releasing and letting go. And come up to your solar plexus. This is right in the midsection of your body. It's the stomach area. So this is the pancreas, the stomach, and it includes our adrenals. Check in with yourself here. Notice if there's any tension, if there's any color or an image that comes to mind, any sensations. This chakra is about our will, our courage, our power, our assertiveness, and our self-esteem. So the following questions might be helpful to know if there's an imbalance here. Do you have problems with your digestion? Does your blood sugar levels fluctuate easily? Do you struggle with issues surrounding willpower or self-esteem? Do you have issues around anger? When balanced, we feel responsible, reliable. We feel and have a warmth in our personality. We're confident. We have a sense of one's personal power, and we're able to meet our challenges. When there's a deficiency, we have low energy, weak will, poor self-discipline, low self-esteem. We may be cold both emotionally and physically. We have an attraction to stimulants, a victim mentality, and may feel passive and unreliable. And the universal spiritual truth that resides in this chakra is honor oneself. Honor oneself. So go ahead and take yet another deep cleansing breath in, releasing and letting go. Moving up to the heart chakra. This includes our heart and our lungs. It includes our arms and hands. Take a moment to notice or sense, checking in with your heart, your chest, your arms and hands. Notice how they're doing. As you breathe in and out, notice if there's any color, images, sensations that are coming to you at this time. Remember, you hold the wisdom and knowledge about yourself within you. This chakra is about love and compassion and our ability to forgive. So notice the following questions. Do you have heart disease or high blood pressure? Is it difficult for you to be empathetic with someone who is having a difficult time? Does intimacy frighten you? Are you able to show love and self-care towards yourself? When this chakra is balanced, we're compassionate, loving, empathetic, altruistic, peaceful, balanced, and we have a good immune system. When there's a deficiency, we're antisocial, withdrawn, critical, judgmental, intolerant, may have loneliness and a lack of empathy. And the universal truth that resides here is love is divine power. Love is divine power. So taking another deep cleansing breath in, gently and slowly releasing, letting go, we move up to our throat and neck, the throat chakra. Feel or sense the throat, the neck, the top of the shoulders. Notice how you're feeling. What does your body want you to know? What is it whispering to you? This chakra is about expression, communication, and our choices. Do we make choices for our highest and greatest good? So listen to the following questions and see if any of these resonate with you. Do you have thyroid problems, or do you get a sore throat easily? Is it hard for you to express how you feel? Do you feel like your mind and heart live in two different worlds? Are you able to make choices with your life that are for your highest and greatest good? When balanced, we resonate with a strong voice. We're a good listener. We have a good sense of timing and rhythm. We have clear communications, and we live with creativity. When it's deficient, we have a fear of speaking. We have a small, maybe weak voice. We have difficulty putting feelings into words. We're introverted, tone deaf, and may have poor rhythm. And the universal truth that resides here is I give my personal will to divine will. I let go and I let God. So go ahead and take a deep cleansing breath in. Releasing and letting go as we move up to the third eye, that spot in the middle of your forehead, the third eye. Take a moment to notice how your forehead, your eyes, and this head region feels. Notice if there's any tension, if there's any sensations that your body is trying to express to you. This chakra is about our intuition, perceiving, and our imagination. Listen to the following questions and see if any of these resonate for you. Do you experience frequent headaches? Do you have a tendency to have hormonal imbalances or get depressed? Do you have nightmares, lack of imagination, or difficulty visualizing? Do you have poor intuition? When this chakra is balanced, we have intuition, we are perceptive, we're imaginative, good memory, good dream recall, able to think symbolically and spiritually, and able to visualize. When we're deficient here, we're insensitive, poor vision, poor memory, difficulty seeing the future, lack of imagination, poor dream recall, and denial. And the universal truth here is seek only truth. Seek only truth, letting go of the illusions. Seek only truth. And finally, take a deep cleansing breath in. Slowly and gently exhaling, moving up to the last chakra, the crown chakra, the top of your head. Check in at the top of your head, your connection to the spiritual world. Notice how it's feeling. Notice what your body wants to message you. This chakra is about wisdom, greater knowledge, universal understanding. So take a moment to listen to the following questions. Do you have difficulty with your sleep-wake cycle? Is it difficult for you to meditate? Do you feel disconnected from your own body as well as others? When this chakra is balanced, you have the ability to perceive, analyze, and assimilate information. You're intelligent, thoughtful, aware, open-minded, spiritually connected, and are connected to your own internal wisdom. When it is deficient, you may have spiritual cynicism, learning difficulties, a rigid belief system. You may be apathetic, have an excess of energy in your lower chakras related to materialism, greed, or domination over others. And the universal truth here is live in the present moment. Don't go back to the past. Don't go forward into the future. Stay in the present moment. So again, as you take a deep cleansing breath in, I'm wishing everyone the very happiest of holidays and encourage you to stay in the present moment. Enjoy each moment.
Thank you, Mara. Thank you so much. I hope everybody's okay that we went a little bit over. No, it's good.
Just trying to
Very packed schedule today. Okay, first of all, I was talking 10,000 miles an hour. Sylvia, thank God, set the pace down. I love that.